Hi guys, it's KJ. I hope everybody's doing well. Today I wanted to tell you that I'm here once again talking about autism awareness, autism acceptance, because this is the month of April 2022. Um, so today I have Camille Proctor with me, and Camille Proctor, she's the uh, founder of Color of Autism. Am I correct? The Color of Autism Foundation? Okay, cool.
Mhm.
And the reason why I wanted to talk to Camille is because there are diverse needs based on just diverse people. And so Camille's going to talk to us a little bit more about how she founded the organization, how long she's been in existence, and some of the services she provides. Camille, thank you so much for joining me today. Can you hear me?
Thank you for having me. So I started Color of Autism Foundation. I guess I should go back. In 2006, I had my only son, Ari, and I noticed that he wasn't hitting his developmental milestones, and that kind of concerned me. I did all the, Q&As with the doctors and whatnot, and I was always told boys are slow, boys are this, boys are that. After going finally got someone to diagnose him as having PDD, which I refer to as putting lipstick on a pig, which means effectively that he was autistic. Happy knowing what was wrong, but I really wasn't happy because I didn't find the support that I needed. Now, what do you mean support I needed? For example, your family. You're in deep denial about neurological, mental health, disability situations. Unless you have a leg or a limb, something cut off, then we
Hello?
don't really embrace neural development disorders.
Who's we? Who's we?
We African Americans, African
African
Americans
Americans.
typically,
Okay,
it's
okay.
it's it's difficult for African Americans for reasons because uh, African Americans don't want to feel as they're broken because we've been through so much historically, and this is just one more thing.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was hard because everyone thought that maybe he needed spanking, maybe he needed this, he needed that. When I would go in my community, the Black community and the Caribbean community that I come from, everyone thought it was this, that, and the other. So I would go to white support groups and I would ask questions. For example, what's going to happen when my son's older and he's approached by the police? If he doesn't know how to communicate, something bad will happen to him, especially if he doesn't know how to yield. And my white counterparts would say, oh, no, 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 the police friends, nothing will ever happen to him because they'll know he's autistic. So immediately I knew these weren't the right spaces for me. They weren't supportive of me. I also realized that a lot of it's based practices and practicums are evidence based on white children and not African children or children from than white. So at this point, I was still going through my journey, but I decided to start an organization to address the unique needs of African American. We have a disparity of services in our communities. Um, there's typically not therapeutic interventions in our neighborhoods. They're usually in suburban neighborhoods. So we have an issue with parents being able to get to therapy.
And
Uh,
Camille, I wanted to ask you something because this is something that I noticed is that sometimes there are the services in the community, but the physicians are much older. So they're using methods that have been used over and over and over again, whereas new innovative technologies or new innovative opportunities are coming into play. But because there's this history or tradition of just medicating kids or tradition of saying, Johnny's going to be over here anyway, they don't
mhm.
really look to innovate or incorporate or create a more comprehensive plan. So that was one of the things that I found challenging in the African American community, that it was kind of like a tunnel vision process, um, as far as getting the expansive services that you need. And when I spoke with my counterparts of other nationalities, I mean, they were giving me these great ideas and great concepts that work with my kids, but when I brought it back to the African American community, they may not have been ready for it. Does that make any sense?
No, it makes 100 100%. It makes sense because that's part of the problem. Because when you have these old practices, right, and these old way of doing things, you have an old thought process. You take people back to the 50s and 60s when they thought autistics couldn't live a fulfilling life and couldn't do all of these things. So we, as African Americans, we feed off of that, not giving us anything positive, and that's a problem as well. And when I look to the white community, they had their children in these therapies, their interventions. Some of them I agreed with, some of them I didn't agree with, some of them I just knew needed to be catered or tailored more towards our families. And then I realized some other things. I realized that a lot of our families didn't know what these interventions were, right? They didn't know what the purpose of them were. For example, a lot of parents didn't know what ABA is, applied behavioral analysis. And it's whether you're for or against. And I personally think that ABA is a whole retooling of how it's done. It needs a little more practical, but that's neither here nor there.
Wait. No. Let me give you my ABA story. So my son Jay was in school and he was first grade, and they said, the teacher brought me in because I was saying what Jay could do. He could speak in English and Spanish, etc. And so they had him, they were trying to do red. He was going back and forth between red and rojo, because you got to say it 3 days
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
or 10 times in a row. And so he kept going back and forth between red and rojo. So the school was like, he just can't catch on, but he was catching on. So he went to another school and the teacher said, you know what? He can't catch on. I said, what's the problem? I go into the school. She said, he won't ask for popcorn, because we knew that he liked popcorn and pretzels, right? So she said, Jay, say popcorn. He didn't say it.
That's funny. He's on the
She
same
said,
diet. My son is on the popcorn and pretzels diet. And popcorn, pretzels, and chicken.
yes. That was him.
But not nuggets, chicken on the bone. But I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you were absolutely right. So listen to this. Okay. So, and it has to be, the chicken had to be hot.
Correct.
Not eating any cold chicken. So I go to the school and the teacher offers him popcorn, and Jay's like, and so I said, Jay, what do you want? He said, water. Gave him the water. I said, now ask him if he wants popcorn or pretzel. She said, do you want popcorn? He said, popcorn. What? Popcorn, pretzel. And so he identified them each and every time. But with her tradition of ABA, she could only do popcorn and pretzel. She wasn't asking, what did he want? She was asking him to fit within that limited box. Do you know what I mean? So because he wasn't saying popcorn or pretzel, he had to keep doing the 3 days, 10 times in a row. And I was like, he's a smart kid. Stop commanding and start asking, and then he'll communicate with you and understand that you respect him. So that was where I grew with the whole ABA and TEACH and Greenspan and Miller method and floor time and etc. But go ahead, you go. I'm sorry.
That is it's very problematic. And I think that these practices, so I believe that there's therapeutic interventions that are needed when your child is small, right? Because I think the earlier the intervention, the better outcome. So when we're talking about toddlers to, like, let's say 5 years of age, I think that it's useful. And that's the whole purpose of getting children identified early, right? So one of the things we do at the Color of Autism is that we do parent training, and we train parents how to be their child's first and also their very best advocate, because an informed parent is an empowered parent. That's really important. We teach parents how to be data collectors, like talk about how many times your child perseverates over a light switch, turn it off, how many times a day do that? What are their likes? What are their dislikes? You need to be able to chronicle those things when you're having conversations with these therapists. You need to be the person telling them, not them, you, right? Because that's a big problem. So what I was going to say about ABA previously, I had a young lady and she had her child in ABA, and she just basically like, and our daughter gets on me for this because she's like, you only have one voice that you do. And I go, shut up. She goes, they just stupid. And I'm like, what? Yo, they don't say nothing to my son. They just ask him all to do the same thing over and over again. I said, what is the lady asking? But here's the point though. What is she asking him? Touch his head, touch his head, touch his head. I said, okay, let me ask you a question. If your son comes to you and he's crying and he has his hand on his head, what does that mean? Oh, he bumped his head. Oh, what that's for? I said, yeah, it's repetitive. And it doesn't always make sense, some of the things that they add. But you do want him to be able to identify his violence and when he has pain. I said, but what you also need to do is you need to talk about what's important in your house. What's important in your household? Like the example, Kelly, that you gave about Jay asking him what he wants. He wanted water. He didn't want popcorn, but that was the only option offered to him. So there needs to be some versatility into what's being done. Something else we do at the Color of Autism through our training is we introduce parents to advocates. Why do we do that? Because our children, that's who our children will become. Our children need to know early on how to advocate for themselves properly. And rather than saying that's a whole different world, those people over there, we need to really seek out their advice. Unfortunately, the internet led us to believe that these autistic people are mean, hateful, and hate, and that's absolutely not true. What they want to do with us parents, because now they are parents, which is kind of funny. Now they're parents and they have children that they're raising. They want to commiserate with us and help us do the things that we may not have thought about doing, you know? So give you an example. I'll myself way under the bus. My son could very well be fourth member of the Migos because he's a mumble rapper. All he was like, what? What? Sometimes he doesn't speak English clearly. He doesn't articulate. And that's my fault. And why is it my fault? Because years ago, I took away his AAC device because I thought it would hinder him from his speech. One day I had a conversation with an advocate who was actually presenting to our parents. And this person said, yeah, I prefer to type over talk and I use it in AAC device. Now I'm looking at the screen like this. Wait, you're so fluid. There's so much fluidity in command in your voice and you don't like to talk? I'm confused. And they said, yeah, Mom. And I said, and you still use that AAC device? Mm-hmm. And they told me, they said, that's not going to hinder your son from speaking really, speaking at all. Because I was thinking in terms of he was just going to be on it pressing all day. And I didn't want to hear that Stephen Hawking voice, the little voice that comes out of it. I didn't want to hear that. And what I found out is that I actually hindered him from developing a clearer vocabulary. So these are the things that we do. We want our parents to be strong. When I say our parents, we want parents of color, BIPOC parents. We want parents to have a voice, choice, and we want their child to have a voice and a choice. And that's something that hasn't been available to us living here in America for 500 or so years. And I just want to make sure that our families are getting the support that they need from one another, which is why the Color of Autism, what we serve, what our logo represents, it even represent the thing that people thinks it does, like the puzzle. Autism is not really, it's not a puzzle. We're not trying to fix people. What our logo represents is that the Color of Autism is to connect it to parents of color, to other parents for services, support, and most importantly, community. That's what we are, connecting thread to all of those things. And what we've had to do as African Americans in the country is that we've had to connect to one another in order to disseminate information. And that's what the Color of Autism is.
I think one of the most fascinating things is, and I'm going to have to go in a second, one of the most fascinating things is when we say the color or African American or Latinos or just talking with a diverse realm of color. There are African Americans living in different geographic locations than we were beforehand, and of different socioeconomic status. So sometimes when people say programs of color, they earmark a certain portion of the African American community, and we miss all the other ones, right? I like the fact that your umbrella invites more people from different environments, from different backgrounds, different resources, etc., to come together. And I say that because in our conversation, I learned that you have connections throughout the US and a very, very powerful presence with autism. So I like the fact that you are multifaceted and, forward thinking with your approach. What I would like to do, Camille, is I would like for you, if at all possible, to share your information and how, you can or would be willing to help people. Do you do virtual programs? Do you help individuals start up new programs? What is the vision of moving forward, for you?
Sure. So our programs, which you can go to our website, www.thecolorofautism.org. You go to our programs page and you can sign up. We have parent training, which is virtual via Zoom. We have support groups that via Zoom. We have a father's group, a dad's group, which is really important to get them to have a space, a safe space, so they can really talk about their feelings, right? Um, you're right. We have everybody in our training. Have it. You could be from, the Upper West Side. You could be from Harlem. It doesn't matter where you're from.
So you have,
All of our parents.
so you have George and Wheezy, and you
We
have
got George
Florida and
and Weezy.
James.
We got Florida and James, George and Weezy. It doesn't matter. We don't care. And the thing about it, when you get into our class, the beauty of our classes is these parents get to know one another. And I'm saying, like, if somebody miss a week, and this is the funniest one, we've had white parents come to our training. And there's one who's near and dear to me, because when she didn't show up, everybody was like, "Oh, did you call her? Did you send her an email? Where is she at?" They'll look for, like, our parents embrace each other and they hold each other up. But I mean, and so it's a good thing you to have the different classes of people. And I say that, and that's not to be snooty or anything, but we offer our classes for free, no matter whether you can pay it or
Say that
not.
again.
That's the point of
Say it again. Say it
free,
again. Okay.
free,
Okay.
free.
So
It's free.
so in other words, there's no excuse.
There's no excuse. We get grants for that. And this is the thing that I said, is that I wish more organizations would look towards programs that train, that help us thrive. Because I'll be honest with you, sensory friendly stuff is great. But if you don't know how to do anything with your child, what good is that movie that you just went to see?
Come on now. Come on now.
If you got a free trip to the zoo, is that hot dog and that soda that you ate gonna help you when little Raymond is about to walk about the house because he likes to wander? So you really we need to stop being an incentivized. And I think that so often we think that we have to incentivize our parents. We don't give any. Yes, we do. We give away. When you finish our training, you get a swag bag with all types of stuff to help you throughout the span. And we do give you a certificate of completion and you get things. But no, I'm not going to pay you to do what you're supposed to do, which is be a parent. I'm going to help and try to make things easier for you. So I just wanted to make that really clear. We're about empowerment. We're not about incentives, none of that stuff. Because there's, how we say, 50, 11 ages can give you food, give you this. We stay in our lane. We want to empower our families, period.
I want to ask you something. So, and just let me know. So your program is appropriate for aunties and uncles who may be working with kids? Is it appropriate for teachers who may be working with kids of diverse backgrounds, or is it solely for parents?
So we do allow, I call the nuclear family, because in Black America, grandma might be mama someday, auntie might be mama someday. You know how it goes down. I mean, it goes down that. So our classes are open. Now we do kind of stay away from, like, we have specific trainings for teachers and professionals in regards to DEI and cultural competency, right? But our programs are developed for parents to have a safe space. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So when we have our trainings, we'll bring in a Black speech and language pathologist, a Black ABA therapist. Where I'm going, I'm Black, this and that. And it's like, why? Because typically our parents aren't shown these people. That's not who they deal with. So what do? They shut down. Sometimes they see someone that doesn't look like them and they're not that forthcoming. We want our parents to be comfortable enough that we don't trust. And we need comfortable enough that they're going to ask the right questions. You understand? So again, what I said in the beginning. So when they get in those meetings, they can say, this is based on blah, blah. And then they go, ooh, she knows a little something. she or he knows a little something, and they're not gonna pull the wool over their eyes.
And I
See,
can start to loosen up my jacket. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to mask what I don't know. I don't have to put on this facade that I am what I'm not. And
right.
easier to learn, it's easier to grow, it's easier to get the stuff that you can apply after the meeting, you know, when you're in that environment. So Camille, I wanted to once again just say thank you. Can you please give
You're
me
welcome.
contact information so that people can contact you? And what I'll do is I'll also put it in the description to make sure that people are able to access your program. You are phenomenal wealth. I thank you so much for what you're doing for the community, and not only the community, people in general, because you have to learn about the different cultures if you're going to interact with the different cultures. So I love the fact that you're doing it for teachers. So I can talk. My major was speech, I
Right.
can talk. So diverse group can then get engaged and be a part of the process of pushing people beyond baby steps. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And increasing
Yeah.
expectations. Because if you don't expect anything of African American kids, they can't get to the next level. Do you know what I mean? There has to be
Right.
somebody who believes in them. So I love the fact that you're promoting something so that, uh, you know, there's a greater prognosis, there's a greater upward trajectory, you know,
Hmm.
for African Americans and people of color, because it's daunting when you see kids who have so much potential, and you see their peers who have so much potential, but they're given more opportunities, and these kids are put into group homes or whatever, and have a greater propensity to be in a dependent situation versus an independent situation. So, but anyway,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I appreciate it. You can find us at thecolorofautism.org. And one thing I would like to say is that I want our families of color, don't be concerned about the label of being autistic because you're Black. That's a label. There's something attached to every human being, right? When we fixate on the label, we have to remember that oftentimes our white counterparts, they embrace the label. They fight for their children to get through school, to get the extra testing time, the facilitators, and what you said, the high-tech devices and all the adaptive stuff, and they end up in Harvard, and ours end up where?
in group homes,
Exactly.
in group homes.
And well, that's if they're lucky, they end up in group homes. Sometimes they don't end up in group homes, and we need to be brutally honest about that. And we cannot allow our pride, and we don't know, destroy a generation of people, which are children, because they're people.
Right,
So
right.
thanks for having me here. I appreciate it. And it was my pleasure.
Right. And I just want to go back on one more thing. I'm so sorry. And what you said about data collection is so important, because in order to advocate, in order to have people to understand the depth of what you need to be able to provide facts. You need to be able to provide data and statistics that are tangible, that are comprehensible, you know,
Mhm,
for
mhm.
the person who has the opportunity to give you more resources and etc. So what you're saying, you really need to make sure you're honing in on that data so that they can tangibly understand how they can assist you. Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
No, that's exactly what purpose is. You need to be able to say, my child doesn't like textures. Like for example, my son didn't like wet food. Like he just started eating syrup on pancakes. So you have to be able to talk about things, just things. No matter how small, you need to be able to talk about it and articulate it. So you're absolutely right. That you need to be able to talk about these things so they can't tell you about your child,
Camille,
which
you are
frequently
phenomenal.
happens.
Guys, once again, like she said, she has free opportunities. There's no excuse. There's no excuse not to follow up, because you have all the opportunity in the world. And once again, like I said, she's creating an environment that is diverse and understands the culture. Thank you so much for everything, Camille.
Thank you.